In this video, we're going to be looking at applications of literal equations, which is almost always when we use them when we have an equation that represents a formula. So we're going to look first at the area of a circle. So A equals pi r squared. And we want to isolate r. So we're going to do inverse operations. And the first one we're going to do is divide both sides by pi. So then the pi's are going to cancel and we're left with a over pi equals r squared. Now remember, we divided because pi beside the r squared means multiplication, so we're just using inverse operations. Now here it might be a little tricky if you don't remember what a squared is. So this is r squared, which really means r times r. That's not 2 times r, so we can't divide to undo it because it's not multiplication. It's not r times 2. So what we need to do is the inverse of a square, which is a square root. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And in the same way that these pi's cancel, the square is going to cancel with the square root, leaving us with r, which is what we wanted. Equals to a over pi, the square root of that. Now we've isolated r. So let's look at the second formula we have. A equals 1/2 BH is the formula for the area of a triangle. The goal here is to get h by itself, so that means we move 1/2 and b. I'm going to move the 1/2 first. Remember, dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And that cancels and leaves me with 2a equals b times h. Again, the goal is to get the h by itself, so the b is the only thing left on that side with the h. In order to move it, we're going to use division because it's b times h. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we have 2a over b. We have successfully isolated h, so that's all we have to do. And for this last one, we have ax plus by equals c. So this is called the standard form of a linear equation. So we want to get x by itself here. In order to do that, I need to move this whole term over, the whole thing, by. Well, it's related to the x by addition, so to undo that addition, I need to subtract that entire term, by, on both sides. I'm left with ax equals c minus by. Because they're not like terms, I can't combine those. The last step to getting x by itself is to divide both sides by a, because that's multiplication. So my final answer is really ugly, but that's okay. C minus by divided by a. Let's look at this last example. We have a rectangle, and the perimeter can be found if the two dimensions length and width are known. I can determine what the perimeter is. Remember that perimeter means all the way around a figure. So let's look at part A. It says, if a rectangle has a length of 12 inches and a width of 5 inches, what's the value of its perimeter? Well, in order to determine that, I'm going to use this figure. It says the length is 12, so this side is 12, and the width is 5. But this is a 4-sided figure, so we have to know what this side and this side is to determine the entire perimeter. This side is also 12, and this side is also 5. Now, I can add up all my sides. 12 plus 5 plus 12 plus 5. So this gives me 17 plus 17. This is 17, this is 17. I just grouped those. So it gives me a final answer of 34 inches. Now, part B tells us to write a formula for the perimeter. So what did we do? Well, to find the perimeter, we did 12 plus 5. 12 was the length, 5 was the width, plus 12 plus 5 again, because there were 2 lengths and 2 widths. So if I combine my like terms, the formula for perimeter would be 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. The last part says to rearrange the formula so it solves for the length. That means that L needs to be by itself. So I'm going to take my formula, P equals 2L plus 2W and get L by itself. I'm going to start by subtracting this entire term over. Minus 2w on both sides. So we have P minus 2w equals 2L. Lastly, to get L by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 2 because remember that's multiplication and I'm undoing that multiplication. So L is equal to P minus 2w divided by 2. The last thing that this question asks is determine the value of L when P is 20 and W is 4. That's the whole reason we got L by itself in the first place. So instead of plugging things in and having to solve, it's already solved for L, so all I have to do now is plug in. So instead of writing P, I'm going to write 20. So I'm going to write 20 minus 2. Instead of writing W, I'm going to write 4. Divided by 2 is going to be equal to my length. Don't forget the order of operations. This is essentially grouped by numerator and denominator. So I'm going to start with the numerator. I'm going to multiply before I add and subtract. So I have 20 minus 8, because 2 times 4 is 8, divided by 2. And then 20 minus 8 gives me 12 divided by 2. And 12 divided by 2 gives me a final answer of 6. So if the perimeter was 20, the width was 4, the length must be 6.